we do urine tests, like, okay, you take iodine, what happens in your urine? In the very first week, 70%, the bromide is increased by 70%. Now, this just shows you a little bit upside down thinking. They used to put iodide in bread. And the usual allopathic, whatever is going on, they say, no, iodine may be dangerous. So instead we'll put bromine, which is a carcinogen in the bread. Now, this is not very clear thinking, but the result is people are actually, have an increase in cancer and have a lot more bromine in their system, which is not good. So it begins to force that out of the system. The whole rule is the more of one halogen you have, the more it's going to force the others out. It's more sophisticated than that, but I'm just making the point that when you have a lot of iodine going in, you're forcing out these toxic halogens. Iodine is also important. It is the most powerful antibiotic there is. It kills viruses, bacteria, fungus, pretty much everything. It clears the lymph, where a lot of the toxins and the bacteria are stored. So it's a lymphatic decongester, which is quite important in the big picture. We use it in a variety of ways to knock out parasites. There's nothing stronger. They got all these fancy herbal things that they work not very often, but iodine enemas are very powerful. I'll just say that. I'm not going to go into that technology because it's you really need to do it with medical supervision, but it's the best way to get rid of parasites. It does kill parasites and worms and so forth. Now, another aspect of that is it also pulls out heavy metals, particularly mercury, lead, cadmium, and arsenic. Another reason why you want to start slowly, because you're pushing out fluorine and bromine and mercury. So I like people to go a little slow. And that's a safer way to go. Obviously, we're aware that it also affects thyroid. Now, I purposely waited till the last in the discussion. There's a very high percentage of people with hypothyroidism. 52 million people in the United States, and there's 59 diseases associated with with thyroid imbalance. Both hyper and hypothyroidism are associated with low iodine. How can that be? Well, what it is, the low is pretty simple, right? You need iodine to make, T3 and T4, okay? But the other problem when you have your Hashimoto's type diseases, okay, is that the low iodine, the thyroid's trying to compensate, and it compensates by creating a goiter, but also, if it's not quite organized right, it will actually increase the size to try to make more thyroid hormone. And then, in that abnormal reaction, your body begins antibodies against the thyroid, and that's why you got the Graves and Hashimoto's disease. So contrary, well, those are the low, but the hyperthyroidism, contrary in a sense to what we're seeing here, is that if you supply the iodine, then the thyroid will stop working hyper-wise and come to normal. It's a little tricky. We had a person at the fast who we did this with who was hyperthyroid, and even within a few days, the size of her thyroid began to shrink, and it was interesting that it happened so quickly. But we're always like, how do you balance that? Because there may be a hyper stage before you go to the normal stage. So, that's something that really requires medical supervision to a certain extent.
So you say that hyper cannot be from, because I know a friend of mine that she was eating a lot of seaweeds.
It's unlikely that the seaweed, that the iodine is going to create a hyper situation. The hyper is more from a low iodine. Now, can seaweed kind of stimulate it? A little bit? You can take too much of anything. But the general hyperthyroid that we see in society is not from an excess of iodine. You can do that if you try hard enough. But it's not the normal cause. Yeah.
Is there a standard blood test you can ask your physician that verifies if you are iodine deficient or not?
It's a urine test. The research I'm reporting to you is, you take 50 milligrams of Idorel, which is a form, and then you see how much iodine comes out. If you're deficient, very little iodine will come out. If you're adequate, then a lot will come out. That's the gold standard test.
But is it a standard test that any physician can?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that is in the United States. That's what I'm saying. I assume it's the same here. That's basically the standard test that they did to see how many people are deficient. When they did the 96%, that's what they did. They did 4,000 people, and 96% were deficient. And they're just using the standard urine test. Take the 50 milligrams, see how much comes out the next day in a 24-hour urine.